How to truly let go and be free. Freedom is not something we can chase. It is not a goal we can reach or a place we can arrive at. In fact, it's the very thing we constantly run from without realizing it. You see, the truth is, we are already free, but it is our mind that locks us in chains. We hold on so tightly to the idea of what life should be, to the stories of what we believe we are, that we forget we are in the flow of life itself. And life, my friends, is not something you control. It is something that flows, that breathes, that moves effortlessly. To truly be free, we must first understand this. We cannot control the flow of life. Life moves on, regardless of our attempts to shape it. The wind blows where it chooses, the rivers carve their paths, and the stars dance across the heavens. Why should we be any different? When we understand that life has its own rhythm, we can begin to dance with it. Letting go is not an act of defeat. It is the act of surrendering to the rhythm of life. It is saying, I trust what is unfolding. When we are free of our constant need to control, we can actually experience freedom in the present moment. Freedom is not external. It is internal. It has nothing to do with where you live, the people around you, or what you own. It is born from within. The moment we detach from our need for validation, from the craving for external approval, we begin to experience life as it is, encumbered, raw, and true, and so the key is in the present. The past, that memory of who we were, and the future, that story of what we hope to become, are only illusions. They distract us from what is real, what is here, what is now. The more we let go of these distractions, the more we can experience the power of now. When we stop clinging, when we stop striving, when we stop resisting, only then can we truly be free. We become like water, flowing around obstacles, adapting to the shape of the moment, moving gracefully with the tides of life. Freedom is not a destination to reach. It is a realization that comes from within. When we finally let go, we realize that we were never trapped in the first place. We have always been free. Let go of the need to control the flow of life. This is one of the most profound realizations we can have as human beings, but it's also one of the most difficult to embrace. The very nature of our minds, our ego, our sense of self makes us want to grasp onto life, to hold it in place, to mold it into something that fits our expectations. We want certainty, security, and we believe that if we just try hard enough, we can make the world bend to our will. But the truth is, life doesn't work like that. Life is fluid. Life is change. Life is an ongoing flow that moves, twists, and turns, and no amount of resistance or effort can stop it. When we try to control the flow of life, we are essentially fighting the very essence of existence. We forget that we are not separate from life. We are part of it. We are like a wave in the ocean, believing that we can exist apart from the water. But the wave is the ocean, and the ocean is the wave. The flow of life is not something we can separate ourselves from, nor can we dictate its course. It is bigger than us. It is beyond our understanding, and when we try to control it, we only bring ourselves suffering. Let's take a moment to consider what control truly is. We think of control as holding something firmly in our hands, shaping it, directing it. But when we look closely, we realize that control is an illusion. What we think we are controlling is constantly changing, slipping through our fingers, and what we are really doing is trying to impose our own limited will on something that is infinitely more complex than we can ever comprehend. It's like trying to hold water in your hand. It's simply not possible. Water moves freely, naturally, and in the same way, life moves according to a pattern far greater than our individual desires. Now, this is not to say that we should abandon all action or responsibility. It's not about being passive or indifferent to the world around us. Rather, It's about recognizing the difference between action that flows with the current of life and action that struggles against it. When we let go of the need to control, we open ourselves to a different kind of action, one that is in harmony with the world, one that arises spontaneously and effortlessly from within us. This is not a passive existence, but one of active participation in the unfolding of life, without the burden of trying to force it into a shape that suits us. The key to letting go of control lies in trust. Trust that life knows what it's doing. Trust that the flow of life has a wisdom beyond our understanding. We are so used to trying to control things because we fear the unknown. But when we surrender to the flow of life, we allow ourselves to be guided by something greater than our fear, something greater than our ego. This trust is not blind or naive. It's a deep knowing that the universe operates on a rhythm, a natural order that we are part of. And just like a tree doesn't worry about the wind, we don't need to worry about the flow of life. When we let go of our desire to control, we discover that life has a way of unfolding in a way that is more beautiful, more perfect, than we could ever imagine. The need for control comes from a deep-seated fear, fear of the unknown, fear of loss, fear of failure. But this fear only strengthens the illusion of control, and it keeps us trapped in a cycle of anxiety and struggle. We begin to believe that if we can control everything, we can protect ourselves from life's unpredictability. But this is a false sense of security. In truth, trying to control life only creates more chaos. It's like trying to control the tides. The more you fight against them, the more they push back. But when you let go and allow the tide to carry you, you flow with it, you become part of it, and you experience the beauty of the ocean's vastness. To truly let go of the need to control is to accept that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. It's an acceptance of the unknown, an embrace of the uncertainty that is the very fabric of existence. It is to step into the flow of life, not as someone who tries to direct it, but as someone who dances with it, who moves in tune with its rhythm, who allows themselves to be carried by its currents. And in doing so, we discover a freedom that cannot be found in control, a freedom that comes from the realization that we are not separate from life, but a vital expression of it. When we let go of the need to control, we stop resisting the present moment. We stop fighting against what is, and instead we accept it, we embrace it. And in that embrace we find peace. We find a deep sense of connection to the world around us, to the flow of life itself. We become free not because we control everything, but because we trust that everything is unfolding as it should. And in that trust we find the freedom to be fully alive, fully present, and fully engaged in the dance of life. Freedom is not a destination, but a realization. We often think of freedom as something we can attain, a goal we can reach, a place we can go. Perhaps we envision it as a distant shore, a faraway land, or a moment of perfect clarity when everything falls into place. We are taught that freedom is something we must strive for, something we must earn, and once we have it, we will finally be free. But the truth is, freedom is not a place or a point in time. It is a realization, an awakening to something that has always been with us. The idea of freedom as a destination is rooted in a misconception about what it means to be free. We think that by changing our external circumstances, by obtaining the right job, the right relationship, the right amount of money, or the right political system, we can achieve freedom. And yet, how many people have attained all these things, only to find that they still feel trapped, still long for something more? The reality is that external circumstances cannot bring us true freedom. No matter how much we accumulate, no matter how much we change the outside world. We will never feel free until we realize that freedom comes from within. True freedom is not about having control over external events. It is about the liberation of the mind, the release of the self-imposed chains that bind us to fear, to desire, to attachment. It is about letting go of the need to control, to force, to demand. It is about embracing life as it is, without trying to reshape it according to our own narrow understanding. When we realize this, we see that freedom is not something we can chase after. It is something that emerges naturally when we stop resisting life and start flowing with it. Consider the birds in the sky. They don't seek freedom. They are free by their very nature. They don't need to worry about how to fly or where to go. They simply fly. In the same way, freedom is not something we need to pursue. It is something that arises when we stop trying to control everything around us. When we stop clinging to our ideas of what should be and allow ourselves to experience life as it is, we find that freedom is already here. It is present in every moment, waiting for us to realize it. The struggle for freedom is often a struggle against ourselves. We struggle to free ourselves from fear, from doubt, from the expectations of others. We struggle to break free from the limits we impose on ourselves, the beliefs that we are not enough, or that we cannot do what we truly desire. But the truth is, all of these struggles are unnecessary. Freedom is not something that we need to fight for. It is something that we need to recognize within ourselves. It is the realization that we are already free, that we have always been free, and that the only thing standing between us and our freedom is our own belief that we are not. We often confuse freedom with the absence of restrictions, the absence of boundaries, but this is a misunderstanding. True freedom is not the absence of boundaries, it is the ability to flow within them. It is not about being free from all rules and limitations, but about understanding that the rules and limitations are part of the dance of life. Just as a bird is not free by flapping its wings aimlessly in every direction, we are not free when we ignore the natural boundaries of existence. True freedom arises when we align ourselves with the flow of life, when we learn to move with the rhythms of the universe rather than against them. Freedom is also the realization that we are not separate from life, but an integral part of it. We are not separate from the world around us, from the people we meet, or from the circumstances we encounter. We are in relationship with everything, and in this relationship we find our freedom. It is when we cease to see ourselves as isolated individuals, locked in a battle with the world, that we discover the deep interconnectedness of all things. And in that interconnectedness, we realize that our freedom is not an isolated state, but one that arises from our participation in the whole. The more we understand that freedom is not a destination, the more we begin to live in the moment. We stop waiting for the perfect time to be free, and we start recognizing that every moment offers us an opportunity to be free. Freedom is not something that we must wait for. It is something that is available to us right here, right now. It is the realization that in each moment we have the power to choose how we respond, how we perceive, and how we live. This power, this freedom, is already within us, waiting to be recognized. So, let us stop thinking of freedom as something we can attain. Let us stop chasing it like a distant dream. Instead, let us turn inward to the realization that freedom is not something to be reached, but something to be recognized. When we stop looking for freedom in the future, when we stop believing that it exists somewhere out there, we find that it is already here, right in front of us, in every breath, in every thought, in every experience. We are free the moment we realize that we have always been free. Embrace uncertainty and the natural rhythm of life. This might seem like a counterintuitive idea, especially in a world that constantly seeks control, certainty, and stability. We live in a society that prizes the known, the predictable, the controlled. From our careers to our relationships, we try to fit everything into neatly defined categories, and we take comfort in the illusion that we have some measure of control over our lives. But the truth is, life is inherently uncertain, and the more we try to force it into a rigid framework, the more we create suffering for ourselves. To truly live, to experience the fullness of existence, we must learn to embrace uncertainty, to trust the ebb and flow of life, and to dance with the rhythms of the universe. Uncertainty is often seen as something to be feared. We fear what we cannot predict, what we cannot control, but in reality, uncertainty is not something to be afraid of. It is the very essence of life itself. Life is change, and change is by nature unpredictable. Every day is a new adventure, filled with unknowns. Every moment brings with it the possibility of something entirely new, something that we could never have anticipated. And yet, it is this very uncertainty that makes life so rich, so vibrant, so full of possibility. When we try to control life, we are essentially trying to stop the natural flow of the universe. We resist the changes, the unknowns, the unpredictability. We try to force life into a mold, and in doing so, we stifle its creativity, its spontaneity, and its beauty. But when we let go of the need to control, we open ourselves to a whole new world of experience. We allow life to unfold as it will, without imposing our own limited expectations on it. And in doing so, we find that life is not something to be feared or controlled, but something to be embraced and celebrated. To embrace uncertainty is to trust that life will unfold in its own way. It is to accept that we cannot know every outcome, and that this is not only okay, but it is part of the beauty of being alive. The more we embrace uncertainty, the more we become attuned to the natural rhythms of life. We begin to see that life is not a series of random events, but a grand and intricate dance, with each moment flowing into the next, like the beat of a drum or the sway of a tree in the wind. The natural rhythm of life is constantly moving, changing, and evolving, and when we stop resisting it, we begin to move with it, like a dancer who follows the music without trying to control it. Imagine for a moment a river. The river does not question its course. It does not try to control the rocks, the currents, or the weather. It simply flows. It embraces the twists and turns of the landscape, moving forward with ease, trusting that it will find its way. The river does not fear uncertainty. It embraces it, and in doing so, it becomes part of a greater flow, a flow that is both beautiful and inevitable. We too are like the river. When we learn to embrace uncertainty, we too begin to flow with the rhythm of life. We no longer fight against the current, but instead move with it, trusting that each moment will carry us to where we need to be. The natural rhythm of life is not always smooth, of course. There are storms, there are rough waters, and there are moments of stillness. But each of these experiences is part of the rhythm, part of the dance. The ebb and flow of life cannot exist without its highs and lows. The beauty of the world lies not in its perfection, but in its imperfection. It lies in the way the universe constantly shifts, creating new patterns, new experiences, new possibilities. When we try to control life, we deny ourselves the richness of these experiences. We limit ourselves to a narrow view of what life can be. But when we embrace uncertainty, we allow ourselves to experience life in all its depth and complexity. To embrace uncertainty is also to embrace the unknown within ourselves. We are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and yet so often we try to hold onto a fixed image of who we are. We fear change, we fear transformation, because it feels like stepping into the unknown. But the truth is, the unknown is not something to fear. It is the realm of possibility, the place where growth and creativity happen. When we let go of the need to control who we are, we open ourselves to becoming something more, something new, something alive. We become more authentic, more connected to the natural flow of life, and more in tune with the infinite possibilities that exist within us. Embracing uncertainty does not mean that we abandon responsibility or lose direction. It means that we become flexible, adaptable, and open to the unfolding of life. It means that we trust the process, even when we cannot see where it will lead. It means that we stop trying to force things to fit into our limited understanding, and instead allow life to reveal itself in its own time and in its own way. When we embrace uncertainty and the natural rhythm of life, we discover that we are not separate from the world around us, but an integral part of it. We are not isolated individuals, battling against the tides of fate, but part of a greater flow, moving together with the universe. In this flow we find our freedom, our peace, and our connection to something larger than ourselves. Life becomes a dance, a song, a poem, a constant unfolding of beauty and possibility, and all we have to do is let go, trust the rhythm and flow with it. Detach from the constant need for validation and external approval. This is one of the most liberating realizations we can come to in our lives. We are raised in a world that constantly tells us we need to prove ourselves, to seek approval from others, to live up to external standards. From a young age, we are taught that our worth is measured by how others see us, by how well we perform, by how closely we fit into the molds that society has created. But the truth is, seeking validation from the outside world is an endless cycle, a trap that only keeps us disconnected from our true selves. When we live for the approval of others, we place our happiness in their hands. We allow them to define our worth, and we become slaves to their opinions. We become dependent on external feedback to feel good about ourselves, and when that feedback is not forthcoming, we feel lost, empty, or inadequate. But the problem with this is simple. Other people's opinions are not reliable. They are fleeting, changing, and often based on their own insecurities, projections, and misunderstandings. To live in constant pursuit of their approval is to live in a state of perpetual instability. When we seek validation, we become like a ship drifting aimlessly at sea, subject to the whims of the winds and the tides. One moment we feel high, the next moment we feel low, depending entirely on whether those around us are pleased with us. But this is no way to live. True freedom comes when we realize that our worth does not depend on anyone else's approval. It is inherent. It comes from within. The need for external validation is simply an illusion that keeps us trapped in a cycle of seeking and never finding true contentment. To detach from this need for validation is to reclaim our power. It is to recognize that we are not defined by the opinions of others, but by our own sense of self. When we stop looking outside ourselves for approval, we begin to look inward. We start to recognize that we are enough, just as we are. Our worth is not contingent on what others think of us, but on our own understanding of our intrinsic value. And when we come to this realization, we free ourselves from the exhausting pursuit of validation. This does not mean we abandon all social connections or cease to value the opinions of those we respect. Relationships, feedback, and constructive criticism are important aspects of life, but they should not be the foundation of our self-worth. We can engage with others without attaching our sense of value to their approval. We can be open to learning, growing, and evolving without relying on others to tell us we are good enough. In doing so, we begin to live authentically, free from the constraints of other people's judgments. The process of detaching from the need for validation requires us to shift our perspective. We must understand that our value is not based on how others see us, but on how we see ourselves. It is an internal realization, a shift from seeking approval outside of ourselves to cultivating a sense of inner approval. When we approve of ourselves, when we accept ourselves fully, we no longer need the constant reassurance of others. We become our own source of validation. This journey of self-acceptance is not an easy one, as we have been conditioned to seek approval from the moment we are born. Society encourages us to fit into predefined roles, to conform to expectations, and to seek constant praise. But when we stop seeking external validation, we begin to uncover the vast reservoir of confidence and self-worth that lies dormant within us. We realize that we are worthy of love, respect, and success, not because of what we do or how others perceive us, but simply because we exist. We are enough, just as we are. When we detach from the need for validation, we also free ourselves from the tyranny of comparison. In a world that is obsessed with comparison, whether it's comparing our achievements, our possessions, or our relationships to others, we become caught in a never-ending race. But the moment we stop seeking approval, the need for comparison vanishes. We no longer measure ourselves against anyone else's standards because we no longer rely on their opinions to define us. We realize that we are on our own unique journey, and the only standard that matters is our own. Detaching from external validation also allows us to live more freely and authentically. When we no longer seek to please others, we can make decisions based on what truly resonates with us, rather than what we think will gain us approval. We are no longer afraid to make mistakes, to take risks, or to be ourselves, because we are no longer afraid of what others might think. We are liberated from the fear of judgment, and in that liberation we discover a profound sense of peace and freedom. This is not to say that we should disregard the feelings of others, or become indifferent to the opinions of those around us. It simply means that we stop relying on external validation to feel good about ourselves. We stop seeking approval as a means of confirming our worth. We realize that our worth is intrinsic, and that the only person whose approval we truly need is our own. So, detach from the constant need for validation. Let go of the idea that you need others to tell you that you are enough. Look inward and discover the truth that has always been there, that you are worthy, that you are valuable, and that you are enough, just as you are. When you realize this, you will no longer be dependent on external approval to feel fulfilled. You will live authentically with a deep sense of self-assurance, and the world around you will reflect that confidence back to you. Realize that true freedom comes from within, not from external circumstances. This is a fundamental truth that is often overlooked in the hustle of daily life. We are constantly told that freedom is something to be achieved, something that depends on external factors, on the right job, the right relationship, the right material possessions, or the perfect set of circumstances. We believe that if only we had more of this or less of that, we would finally be free. But the truth is, freedom is not something that can be found outside of ourselves. It is not something we can attain or acquire. It is something that comes from within, and once we realize this, we can experience a freedom that is independent of external conditions. The world around us is constantly changing. Our circumstances shift, people come and go, and situations rise and fall like waves in the ocean. If our freedom is tied to these external forces, we will forever be at their mercy. Our sense of freedom will be unstable, fluctuating with every change in the external world. When things go well, we feel free. When things go wrong, we feel trapped. This kind of freedom is fleeting and unreliable because it depends on forces that are beyond our control. True freedom, however, is not dependent on the outside world. It is not something that can be taken from us or granted by others. It is a state of mind, a way of being. When we come to understand that freedom comes from within, we realize that we are not bound by circumstances. We are free to choose how we respond to any situation, free to determine our own perception of the world. No matter what happens outside of us, we can remain grounded in our inner sense of freedom. This does not mean that we should ignore the world around us or pretend that external circumstances don't have an impact. Of course, we must engage with the world. We must work, interact, and navigate the challenges of life. But when we recognize that true freedom is an inner experience, we no longer allow external conditions to dictate our emotional state or sense of self-worth. We stop reacting to the world in a way that robs us of our peace. We stop seeking happiness in external accomplishments, and we begin to cultivate happiness from within. Freedom from within is not about avoiding difficulties or seeking to escape from challenges. It is about the ability to remain centered, regardless of what is happening around us. It is about understanding that we are not defined by our circumstances. We can experience joy, peace, and contentment, even in the midst of struggle, because our sense of freedom is not tied to the outcome of any given situation. It is tied to our ability to remain true to ourselves, to our values, and to our inner peace, no matter what the world throws at us. Imagine for a moment a tree standing in a storm. The wind blows fiercely, the rain pours down, but the tree does not struggle to remain upright. It bends with the wind, it sways with the storm, but it remains rooted in the earth. It does not allow the storm to uproot it. In the same way, when we realize that true freedom comes from within, we become like that tree. We learn to bend with the winds of life without losing our inner stability. We are not immune to the storms, but we do not let them break us. Our freedom is not contingent on whether the storm passes, but on our ability to remain grounded in our true selves, regardless of what is happening around us. The more we recognize that our freedom is not dependent on external circumstances, the more we begin to let go of the need to control life. We stop trying to force things into being, stop trying to manipulate situations to fit our desires. We stop believing that we must change the outside world in order to feel free. Instead, we focus on how we can change our relationship with the world. We begin to accept life as it is, without trying to mold it into something it is not. In this acceptance, we discover a freedom that is not dependent on anything outside of ourselves. It is the freedom to be ourselves, to be present in the moment, and to live authentically, without the need for external validation or approval. When we understand that true freedom comes from within, we no longer feel like victims of our circumstances. We stop believing that we are powerless, that we are at the mercy of the world around us. Instead, we realize that we have the power to choose how we respond to life. We have the freedom to choose our attitude, our perspective, and our actions. No matter what happens in the external world, we are free to decide how we will react. We are free to remain calm in the face of adversity, to find peace amidst chaos, and to live with purpose and intention, no matter what external forces may be at play. This realization is transformative. It frees us from the endless cycle of seeking and striving, from the endless chase for external success or approval. We no longer need to wait for the right conditions to be happy or to feel free. We understand that freedom is something we carry with us, something that is always available, no matter where we are or what we are doing. When we understand that true freedom is an inner experience, we stop looking for it in the external world. We begin to realize that we have always been free, that we have always had the power to choose our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. And in this realization we find peace, joy, and the freedom to live fully, regardless of what the external world may bring. True freedom comes from within. It is not something that can be given or taken away by the outside world. It is a state of being that arises when we stop searching for it in external circumstances and start recognizing it within ourselves. When we make this shift, we find that we are free. Free to live, free to love, and free to be exactly who we are. Recognize the power of presence and being fully engaged in the moment. This is one of the most profound insights you can come to, and it is perhaps one of the most challenging to practice in our fast-paced world. We are constantly pulled in different directions, often multitasking, our minds racing from one thought to the next. Yet in all of this there is a deep truth. The only true reality we experience is the present moment. The past is gone, and the future has not yet arrived. The present moment is all there is. And when we fully engage with it, we open ourselves to a depth of experience and awareness that is otherwise unavailable. When we talk about being present, we are not simply referring to the act of being physically in a place. Being present is about being fully aware, fully attuned, fully engaged with the here and now. It is about bringing our attention, our awareness, and our energy into this moment, rather than scattering it across the past and future. When we are present, we are not thinking about what has already happened or worrying about what is to come. We are simply here with everything that is happening around us in this moment. The simple act of being fully present in the moment allows us to experience life more deeply and with greater clarity. Too often we live in a state of distraction. Our minds wander to what is next, to what has been, to what could be. We check our phones while we talk to others, we rush through our meals, we plan our day while we are still in the middle of it. We are rarely fully present in what we are doing, yet it is in these moments of distracted living that we miss life itself. We miss the beauty of the sunset, the feeling of a loved one's touch, the joy of a simple conversation, or the peace in the quiet stillness of the moment. By not being fully engaged, we disconnect from the richness of life. The power of presence is that it allows us to experience life exactly as it is. When we are truly present, we see the world with fresh eyes. We hear words with new clarity. We taste food with greater appreciation. We feel emotions more deeply. Presence allows us to fully inhabit our experiences rather than just passively observing them. When we are fully engaged in the moment, life is no longer something that happens to us, but something we participate in fully, deeply, and intimately. Being present also brings with it a deep sense of peace. It is in the present moment that we find stillness and freedom. When we are fully engaged in the now, there is no need to worry about the future or regret the past. The anxiety of what is to come or the sorrow of what has passed simply melts away. We are grounded in the only place where life is actually happening, right here, right now. In this space we are free from the noise of the mind, free from the constant chatter that distracts us from the simple beauty of existence. However, this is not always easy to do. The mind is naturally drawn to the past and future. It constantly jumps from one thought to the next, rarely staying in the present, but the more we practice bringing our attention back to the moment, the more natural it becomes. We can start by simply observing our thoughts and noticing when we are not present. We can then gently guide ourselves back to the here and now. It might be something as simple as focusing on our breath, listening to the sounds around us, or paying attention to the sensation of the ground beneath our feet. These small practices can help us ground ourselves in the present moment. The more we practice presence, the more we begin to realize that this moment, this exact moment, is all that we truly have. The future is a thought that has not yet taken shape, and the past is an idea that no longer exists except in our memories. But right now, in this moment, we have everything we need to live fully. We can make the most of this moment, knowing that it is the only one we can truly experience. Being present also connects us more deeply with others. When we are fully engaged with someone else, truly listening, not distracted by our thoughts or our phones, we create a space for connection that is rare and profound. We are able to meet others where they are, to truly hear them, to understand them. In this space, relationships deepen, and we experience the richness of being with another human being in a way that goes beyond words. Furthermore, presence is not about constantly doing or achieving. It is about simply being. In a world that constantly values productivity and busyness, being present is a radical act of surrender. It is letting go of the need to always be moving, always be accomplishing something, always be planning the next step. It is the recognition that there is power in stillness, in simplicity, in just being here. When we are fully present, we realize that life is not something to be rushed through. It is not a series of tasks to be completed or milestones to be reached. Life is happening right now, in every moment, and there is no greater gift than to be fully alive in it. This is the power of presence. It allows us to live with awareness, to experience life in its fullest expression, and to find peace and contentment in the here and now. So, recognize the power of presence. Let go of the constant need to look forward or backward. Stop rushing through life. Be fully engaged in this moment, right here, right now. When you do, you will find that life becomes richer, more meaningful, and more joyful. You will discover that the present moment is where all of life's magic resides, and in this magic you will find the freedom and peace that you have always been seeking. Surrender to the unfolding of life and trust in its wisdom. This is one of the most profound and liberating practices we can embrace. Yet it is also one of the most difficult for us to truly understand. We are conditioned to believe that we must control life, that we must make things happen, that we must force our will upon the world in order to achieve our desires. But the deeper truth is this: life is constantly unfolding like a river flowing toward the ocean, and we are but travelers on that current. The more we try to control or resist this flow, the more we struggle and the less peace we experience. But when we surrender to the natural unfolding of life, when we trust in the wisdom that is embedded in the very fabric of existence, we align ourselves with the greater rhythm of the universe, and in that alignment we find true freedom. Life in its essence is an unfolding process. Every moment is a step in a journey that is not always clear, not always certain, and not always comfortable. We like to think that we can map out every part of our lives, that we can control the outcome of every decision, and that we can predict what is coming next. But the truth is that life is inherently unpredictable. The future is unknown, and no amount of planning or effort can guarantee what will happen next. What we can control, however, is our response to life as it unfolds. We can either try to swim against the current, resisting what comes, or we can surrender to it, trusting that it is leading us exactly where we need to go. Surrendering does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It does not mean resigning ourselves to fate or abandoning our desires and dreams. Surrendering to life means letting go of the need to force things, letting go of the illusion that we can control every outcome. It is about releasing the anxiety, the worry, and the attachment to specific results. It is about trusting that life has its own rhythm, its own intelligence, and that, like the branches of a tree, we must bend with the winds rather than trying to hold them still. When we surrender, we open ourselves to the wisdom that is already present in the moment, a wisdom that arises when we cease to fight against what is. Trusting in the unfolding of life means acknowledging that, even in moments of difficulty or confusion, there is wisdom at work. We may not always understand why things happen the way they do, and we may not always see the bigger picture, but there is a trust, a knowing that life is not random, that every experience, every challenge, every joy is part of a greater design. This trust allows us to move through life with greater ease, to be more present, and to find peace in uncertainty. When we surrender, we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, and we allow life to teach us its lessons. Life is a dance, and like any dance, it requires a certain level of trust and surrender. The more we try to control the dance, the more we stumble and fall out of rhythm. But when we let go and move with the flow, we find ourselves in sync with the music. In this surrender, there is no fear of making a mistake, no fear of missing the next step. There is only trust that, no matter what happens, we are exactly where we need to be, doing exactly what we need to be doing. Surrendering does not mean that we stop taking action. It does not mean that we stop making decisions, or that we give up on our dreams. It means that we stop trying to control the outcome of those actions. We do our part, but we also release the need to control how things turn out. We trust that the universe, life, or whatever higher power we believe in, is guiding us toward what is best for us. When we let go of attachment to the outcome, we allow ourselves to be open to the unexpected possibilities that life brings. The wisdom of life is subtle and often appears in unexpected forms. It might come in the form of a chance encounter, a change in direction, or even in a moment of stillness. Life has its own timing, and the more we resist it, the more we create suffering for ourselves. But when we surrender, when we stop trying to force life to go our way, we begin to notice the beauty and synchronicity of the unfolding process. We begin to see that everything is happening exactly as it should, even if we can't understand it in the moment. Surrendering also means accepting that we do not have control over everything, and that is okay. We cannot control other people, the choices they make, or the events that occur in the world around us. But we can control how we respond. We can choose to trust, to remain calm, and to accept that there is a larger order at work. This trust in the unfolding of life brings a sense of peace, because we realize that we do not have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We are part of something much bigger, and that bigger force has its own wisdom. In surrender we find freedom. We are free from the constant pressure to control, to predict, to manage every aspect of our lives. We are free to experience life as it is, not as we think it should be. And in this freedom, we discover that life has its own natural flow, its own rhythm, its own wisdom. When we surrender to this flow, we align ourselves with the universal wisdom that is always available to us. And in doing so, we open ourselves to a deeper experience of life, one that is filled with grace, peace, and the understanding that we are not alone in this journey. So, surrender to the unfolding of life. Trust in its wisdom, let go of the need to control, and allow life to reveal its beauty, its lessons, and its mysteries. When you do, you will find that life is not something to be feared or resisted, but something to be embraced fully with trust, gratitude, and love.